only a sinking suspicion it was no more than those bothersome reavers, and this made her disagreeable punishment even more intolerable.
Alice's arm was suddenly slapped away from her face, where she'd rested her palm to hold up her head.
Startled, she yelped and knelt straight. Complete silence surrounded her. She looked guiltily around to find the chapel empty, and the abbess, Lady Eugenia, glaring down at her. The lady's nondescript brown eyes were skinny with displeasure, which was possibly the only expression she could ever recall seeing upon the old woman's face. "It would seem that our devotions," the lady said, her voice sharp, "are beneath you, my child. Are you sufficiently pious that you haven't need of further virtue? Are the souls who beg our prayers not worthy of your time?" "Not at all, my lady."
Annis lowered her head, knowing better than to look too long upon the abbess. She would be judged guilty of more impudence, or disrespect, or outright contempt, and the punishment that was sure to come would only be made more unpalatable.
The punishment did come, and it was indeed most repulsive. She had been dragged out of the chapel and out of the house by the abbess's thick hand wrapped up in her wimple. She had been forced to walk awkwardly at the abbess's side, bent so much like a sickle as the lady's stronghold upon her hair would not allow for her to stand straight. She wasn't so much frightened of the coming price she would pay for failing to perform her solemn duties within the chapel, only more curious which penalty would be inflicted upon her next. Going out of doors, and not toward the centre cloister, but to the yard in front of the big grey stone building, advised her that she would either suffer more lashes — Lady Eugenia enjoyed public retribution — or possibly she might be subjected to time in the stocks. She hadn't a preference. The lashes were painful and the stocks were humiliating, one just as bad as the other, and this she knew first-hand, from many occasions over the last 7 years. It was the stocks, she saw, as the big wooden hinged boards came into view. They sat, literally, in the front yard, which was actually raised and sloped, as Jardine sat atop a small rise. It resembled a stage, she'd always thought, risen above the audience of any upon the main road. Thus, her humiliation would not begin until sunrise, for while the lone torch placed into an iron flute that shot from the ground would for certain illuminate her locked within, none might be about at this hour to witness it. The sub-prioress, the mousy Lady Eleanor, had stuck the torch into its frame and stood aside as another prioress, Lady Eugenia's henchman she'd often thought, scrambled ahead with keys rattling to ready the device. The top board was lifted, and the abbess shoved her onto the ground. The grass was tall and cold and damp, and she wondered if she might then have preferred the lashes. Annis didn't need to be ordered or told what to do. She placed her feet onto the bottom board, setting her ankles just where the half-moon was carved out of the wood. The abbess wrested the keys from the other nun and slammed the top board down herself. She winced, always expecting it to chop her feet off, but the groove in which sat her ankles prevented this, of course. The top lay flat against her limbs, just where her foot might bend, though there was little space to do so now. The stock was locked again. She placed her hands on the grass on either side of her thighs, aware suddenly of how cool the air was. She didn't dare look up at the 3 nuns looking down upon her, but imagined their expressions showed the usual amount of disdain. "You are ever an incorrigible child," the abbess said. "I'd have thought by now to have broken you of that." And then, speaking to the other sisters, "We must take greater pains if we are ever to see her wilfulness and brashness checked." And then they left. Without a backward glance, they moved away, fading into the darkness outside the glow of the torchlight, returning to the warmth of the abbey. She wanted very badly to lie down, but feared the damp grass would intensify her already tremendous shivering. It hadn't been more than an hour, and she'd kept her arms crossed and her hands tucked within the folds of her woolen kirtle, but felt still the chill rising from all parts of her that did touch the ground, through the layers of...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.